It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We have our virtual studio open, and I am pleased to be joined in the virtual studio by an artist that is a little new to me and new to our listeners here at Rhythm and Soul Radio. Dalona is here with us. How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, doing well. So we're going to start back. This is kind of like a beginning type of real introduction to you for a lot of us. So let's kind of quickly go back to the beginning and work our way up. So you were originally from Nashville, Tennessee, but grew up in Michigan.
Yes.
And you grew up in the church, which is the story of a lot of our great singers.
Yes.
And I see your mother was a touring gospel singer.
She was. Listen, I just grew up in the church, but I was also like a preacher's kid. My grandfather was the pastor. My uncle was the organist. My mother was the praise team leader and the choir director. I'm pretty sure at one point I was a kid and I too was the choir director. It was the most stereotypical thing, but it was my life. It was my life for the better part of 17 years. I grew up in church. So, anywhere from 5 days a week to 6 days a week. As soon as I was able to hold a mic, I'm pretty sure I was singing. As soon as they were able to get the mic stand as low as it can go, I was singing.
So did they, kind of push you to sing in the choir, to sing in the children's choir, all that, or did you always want to sing?
That's a really good question. Even now, sometimes I can get really bad stage fright. And so seeing my mother as this powerhouse vocalist singing gospel and Christian music, and before then back in Nashville, she was touring with Al Green and writing just all in the music scene. I think I was like, okay, she's got it, right? Like I'm just in the background. I can do a little something, but I'm good. And I'll never forget, we were all living in a multi-generational household because that's what we do. And my grandfather, who, was living with us, we all lived together. I was in the kitchen getting something as a child, and he heard me sing a little bit, hum something. And I remember him stopping in his tracks. And since that time, I had to be like maybe 6, 7. I was in front of the church singing ever since that time. So
at what point did you feel like in yourself, like, okay, I'm singing is a part of my life. It's like me singing is a part of me, not even necessarily what you wanted to do yet, but maybe it is, maybe it's the same moment. Maybe you had that moment, like, this is like, I sing and this is what I'm going to do. Or it may be, I love to sing, and then it came later. It's like, this is going to be, my path.
Yeah, I would say the latter. When you're especially in the church scene, when you're singing, not just for yourself, but like for God, and it's more of a devotion of your talent versus like a performance, which I really learned from my mother. I got to a point maybe late teens, early 20s, even though I didn't pursue it right away, where I got really serious about my gift. And I no longer wanted to take it for granted, because I knew that it was special. And I knew that as much as I tried to, I just want to be a student and I just want to do this. And as much as I tried to compartmentalize, it was something that I couldn't get away from. It's almost like even today, I have to sing something, be creative, something along those lines every single day, or else I'm unwell. I'm not having a good day.
Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I would guess your mother becomes your first influence in terms of musical influence.
Oh yes. And she was the main person pushing me, like, they're just people and you singing for God, even today, she's like, I know you're gonna make that gospel album one day. And I said, okay, Mom. So she always pushed me, which I'm, when you're younger, when you're a teen or whatever, and it's like annoying and it's like, I don't want to do this, and I told you I want to do this. but now looking back at my big age, I'm super grateful for that, to have someone like my mother that was in my corner and didn't let me give up on my gift, and helping me realize that it was a gift. And so that was, for me, the turning point, and that separated singing from being a hobby versus a calling. So,
Right, right. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We are talking with Dalona here in our virtual studio. She has a current or new EP, Love and Delusion, that is out now. And I want to ask a question kind of leading up to that. Kind of two part. One, you mentioned your mother, is a touring gospel musician, but before that, worked with Al Green and others, quote unquote, in the secular world as well. So, as you started on the musical journey, your first EP was Burning Journals. Is that right?
Yes.
So as you did that project, which is not gospel, how was the reaction, and how supportive of you was your mother of you when you started? Okay, I'm gonna, or maybe you said, "Mom, I've recorded these songs. What do you think?" And she's like, "Oh, it's not gospel," type of thing.
That's such a good question. She's always been supportive, throughout from finding my voice, right, and finding kind of my niche as a songwriter. She's always been supportive. She's always been like, I just want you to be singing and to be creative, because I know that this is just in you, and it's your talent, it's your gift, it's a part of your calling. So always been supportive from day one. I think it was important for me to find my own voice, in terms of how I wanted to sing, what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, and really own that. And that's a huge breaking out moment, I think, for any artist that decides that they really want to pursue this, right? But I think for me, coming from that very like Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal, strict religious background, and saying, I'm going to use my talent, and it may look and sound a different way than maybe, family was expecting. I think that was a very liberating decision on my end. Not just, for any kind of like rebellious thing, but more of, hey, first off, I'm grown. That's number one. Number two, number two, I think regardless of the genre, music just has the power to influence people, to move people, to bring people together. And at the end of the day, that is what I hope, right? Like that's the best case scenario. When folks, tap into my sound or tap into my lyrics and my music, it's just to feel something. So.
We talked earlier, I asked you earlier, excuse me, about, knowing you have this gift and knowing that you love to sing and all that versus the transition to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Is that kind of, do you see that in the transition from Burning Journals, the first EP, to now this EP, Love and Delusion?
Absolutely. I think for my first EP, which I'm super grateful for, I was really experimenting and just finding my voice, finding my sound. What do I sound like? You know what I mean? Like having recorded a full song and writing your own lyrics, like that was very much a starting point for me. And it's funny because half the folks around me, like friends, close friends, coworkers, are like, we didn't even know you could sing, girl. Like you never told us that. You didn't mention anything about that. It really wasn't a part of my identity. Like being an artist, I didn't really wear right on me externally. And so I think the biggest transition from Burning Journals and then Love and Delusion is I feel more confident in my sound, what I want to say, how I want to say it. But a lot of folks see artists doing their thing, and they don't think about the whole business side to it. So when you're the product in the business as an independent artist, it's equally as important, as much as we sometimes hate it, and sometimes I do hate it, to really understand the business and the process of making music, what it means to have a PRO, who are you registered with, what splits mean, what percentages, right? Like, all the above, right? All the stuffy stuff that we don't necessarily like to dive into because we just want to be creative. So I think that was also a big turning point for me from the first EP to the second one, is I was a little bit more savvy on marketing and visuals and things of that nature. So I think for me, it just sets a really good groundwork for me to ramp up and make every single EP from, here on out even better than the last, even bigger, even better, even more collaborative, even more experimental, because now I have that confidence. Like, if I'm betting on myself, I'm doubling down. So
right. So to talk further about that process, so learning the business with the first EP, getting a sense, getting your feet wet, so to speak, and now getting ready to release, and now you've released the second EP, the time frame, because we talked to a lot of independent artists, and sometimes the beauty and the challenge of being an independent artist is you release the music when you can release it, or you're able to let it breathe in a certain time, or it takes the time it takes to make it. So focusing on the last part, the time it takes to make this EP, how long was this process to get this EP done and out the way you wanted it, as you're learning everything after going through the process of burning journals?
yeah, that's a really good question. I think another big distinction from putting out and even the process of creating Burning Journals to Love and Delusion was I went through a lot of big life changes in the midst of it as well. So I would say for Love and Delusion, I mean, my producer, Mark Evans, she's out of LA. Hey, Mark, he's incredible. We worked asynchronously for the better part of, I would say, seven months. So most of 2024. But again, it's that business part of it. So you recording the songs and getting it mixed and it sounding the way you want it to is like 40% of the pie. The other part is like, who's going to do the visuals? How are we going to market? How are we going to promote? So I think the better part of a year is how long I worked on it. And, if I was to give any insight, I don't necessarily follow hard and fast rules about like, I need to, have an EP out every single year. I think I went into it kind of thinking that like it needed to have these very structured guidelines. But at the end of the day, I'd rather do things right than fast. And the awesome but challenging thing about the way my creativity comes to me, it really does come to me in spurts. I could write a song in one sitting, or I could work on a song for months. So I think that's what keeps things exciting. So I try to, cohesively put work together as much as I can to maybe create a full EP or a full album. But if it's a single, that's okay too. So I'm really just rocking with how it's coming to me and just going with the flow.
Right. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We are in the virtual studio with Dalona, excuse me, and we are talking about her new EP, Love and Delusion. We're actually talking about her in general, but right now we're going to talk about the new EP, Love and Delusion. You mentioned you were going through a lot of life changes as you're working on this EP. How much of that made it into the EP? How much of that is that the reason that it's titled Love and Delusion? How did obviously when we'll create a lot of times artists create based on what's around them. So how much of that was the basis of Love and Delusion?
Well, I believe art imitates life for sure. And I feel like we get juicy with that question. But I will say, I'm somewhere between, I'm an open book, but I'm also very private. I would say that a lot of Love and Delusion was derived from real life in some variation, right? Like when you're a songwriter, you are a storyteller at the end of the day. So you may add some stuff into a story, take some stuff out, right? Like not make things too specific, maybe add some very specific details in there. And so I think the beauty about being able to control that narrative as an artist is it's really up to the interpretation of a listener of what is like dead truth versus what is influenced or inspired by. But yeah, to answer your question, I think a lot of those big life changes and just emotional processing definitely came out lyrically and sonically in this EP.
You'll have people listening going, is she really right about me? I guess that's always the question with with people who are around artists, you might get nervous about if they're writing about you, or did you sneak into a song or a lyric in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, hey, it's everything is up to interpretation. I think there's a fine line, but for me, again, it's all about, how is this music first off feeding me, right? Like helping me maybe process something. But how is it just lyrically written and presented to where, the listener can interpret it and apply it or not apply it to their real life. So I like to think of it as like, my listener, my audience is on the safari, I'm the tour guide, but y'all got the binoculars. Like how you see it and how you interpret it is up to you.
I like that. I like that analogy. The listeners have the binoculars to kind of see what they see. I like that. You mentioned your producer. There are 6 songs on the EP. Was there a process of going through 30 songs to get to 6? And you mentioned you're in Michigan and your producer's in California?
I'm in Nashville.
You're in Nashville.
Yep, I'm back in Nashville. I did
You're
like the
back in
whole
Nashville. Okay.
boomerang effect. My producer is in LA. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Obviously, the EP and the production quality speaks for itself. But this one was really interesting because it's not that we had like a bunch of songs to kind of chop down. I kind of knew after writing the second song that I wanted this to be my first concept EP. So like the intention is really for you to listen to it from like track 1 through 9, right? Including the interludes. And so I think it was more about piecing together the story. And I'm super fortunate that like our synergy from artist to producer, and Mark is also an artist, was so tight and so fluid and so organic to where, the story just kind of wrote itself. So by the time we were on the 4th track, we're like, okay, I feel like we're almost there and we've almost told the story and we're going to get the audience, So it was very organic. There was a lot of synergy there. So I have to admit, I mean, the songs we had was the songs we had. And if anything, we added some and didn't take away any. So that's really, again, the beauty of having that control as an artist is you can say, hey, I wrote this song initially for this project, don't like it, I'll just write another one. Like it's not a big deal, So
now you're in Nashville, you're producing in LA. How did y'all connect? Is this one of those stories that connecting online? Because obviously we're in a very different age, so you don't have to necessarily meet face to face and connect face to face. You can kind of work, across the country from each other.
Yeah, that is the beauty of just this asynchronous, like virtual digital world. We actually did meet and connect online. Actually, he produced, I want to say 2 or 3 songs from Burning Journals. And so that's initially how we kind of started to work together. And upon, the success of that, I knew that I wanted to keep the momentum going because at that point I was convinced that this is something that I love and I want to keep doing, making my own music and singing and performing it. It's like, okay, this is the sweet spot. This is a part of my purpose. And so I connected with him, top of 2024. And I was like, you want to run that back? You want to work together again? And he was like, absolutely. So he was the executive producer for all 6 songs on the EP. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you have the EP, you just released it at the top of this year, like a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So you're still getting new response, but certainly the response that you've had so far, like from family, your mom, your dad, others, around, how has the response been so far?
I'm so grateful. This is the part where I really run out of words and vocabulary because the response and just the embracing of even this new unlocked level of my artistry and songwriting and even production, right? And vocals and all of that from complete strangers, right, on the internet to friends, family has been just overwhelming. It's truly been overwhelming in the best way. We had a release party / my birthday is the 2nd, the EP came out the 3rd, and then I had a release party / live show on the 4th of January. And just the love and support there moved me to tears. It was incredible. yeah, it's been nothing but positive and encouraging, and not that I needed it necessarily. I don't need anyone to validate, right, like my skill or my talent or my gift, but having that support and having folks saying like, I don't care what you do, you can have all the jobs in the world, but like this is a job you got to keep. Like you got to keep making music. So that feels good.
That's awesome. Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
The first, we heard the first single, "Rent Free," which I was really taken by because it is a story. It's and it's fun. It isn't like it's kind of a harsh message to whomever it's written about or toward,
Yeah.
but but it's a good story. And I'm sure the rest of the album is the same. Again, the album is Love and Delusion. Before we play Rent Free, which is what we're about to do, tell everybody how they can find you, follow you, social media, all of that.
Absolutely. So if you want to keep up with me as far as when am I performing around the city, I mean, I live in Music City, Nashville. New music updates. If you want to collab, if you want to buy merch, anything of that nature, Dalona Sings. That's DALONA Sings SINGS.com. DalonaSings.com. All of my social media handles are on there as well. But if you want to follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, anything of that nature, it's just at Dalona, DUHLAHNUH. And if you just search my name, all caps, as you're seeing on the screen, you'll find me.
Excellent. And of course, you can get Love and Delusion anywhere you download your music.
That's right.
And certainly directly on DalonaSings.com. We always encourage people to go direct to the source. However it happens any other way, as long as they're going direct to the source, that's the best way to support the artist, because it's all about supporting independent music and supporting independent artists.
Absolutely.
Dalona, thank you so much for being able to chat with us a little bit. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll definitely do this again. I had a great time.
Absolutely. I know there's a full album coming at some point, so we're excited about that, and we'll be ready.
Yes. We gotta stay ready. So we gotta get ready. So yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And put ready for any time before, because you can always come back and we can always talk more.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We've been talking with Dalona. The album is Love and Delusion. The EP, is Love and Delusion. The single, Rent Free, and it's here right now on Rhythm and Soul Radio.